Alright, so this is the yellow glaze search, the next round of tests. And basically I did all sorts of tests. From my last batch they all ran a lot. So this time I decreased the dolomite from 30% to mostly 20, some of them are 25. And then I did 10 to 15% zircopex, added some clay, added some silica to some of them. And then the bone ash was 5 or 10%. And the granite 50 or 60%. So just tried a whole bunch of different things to see what I would hit. And what can we tell? So this yellow glaze is intended for soda. You can see in just gas reduction it's kind of like a pretty pale bluish glaze. But in soda it does go yellow, at least these first few tests. And I think, looking at them, that this one is about the nicest colour and feel. And it's got kind of nice variation to it. Yeah, 977. Also, 989 is pretty nice. So those two glazes are 977 is 50 granite, 10 bone ash, 20 dolomite, 15 zircopex, 5 EPK, and then 980 is 50 granite, 5 bone ash, 20 dolomite, 10 zircopex, 15 EPK. So this shows me that this glaze can take 5 to 15% EPK and be pretty similar, which is nice because the extra clay can help maybe the fit. So yeah, basically I'm gonna aim at this one, run some more tests with it, put this on some actual pots and see how it does. I also did a test where I added 1% iron to the whole thing, 4 and then 7. And arguably I didn't need to do all of this work. Could have just picked a couple. I mean, it's interesting, but I think I should have just maybe run this first test, and then now I know this, then I could run the iron test with that. It would save me some time. Anyway, so this is it when I add 1% iron, and the iron wasn't dispersed well, but it is kind of a slightly warmer tone. So I think if I properly mix that, it'll be pretty nice. The 4% one's not looking great. I mean, there is some interest, but it's a bit drab. And then with the 7%, it's, again, there's something there. I mean, the feel is really nice. The feel of them is really good. But I think more experiments needed. But so in general with these tests, we can conclude a few things. Look at my results here. Basically, if you add silica, too much silica, then you lose the yellow and you just get to kind of like more of a real glaze. I think that these dolomite mats, they're kind of like silica unsaturated. So yeah, that's why they're kind of satiny matte feel. And what else? If you add too much dolomite, like this is 25% as opposed to 20, and it kind of makes it more mottled. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's the conclusions. So I'm gonna pursue 977. Okay, so this is a basalt granite test, and so this is the base test, and then here I add some bone ash. Here's the page. So basically we add 0 to 10% iron to this base, and the base is 64% granite, 16 lime, 20 basalt, and then we add 10% bone ash to all of them. So this is what it looks like as just a straight up, no iron added. It's kind of like a dark green celadon. Definitely runny. They're all quite runny. So yeah, I sort of miscalculated a little, too much lime or not enough clay, so I'm going to do some tests where I add clay to them. And then in soda, yeah, they're not particularly attractive really. There's maybe something in this one. I like the yellow that you get when it's thin. That happens quite often. So I think there's something there. But yeah, it takes a while to get to a point where you actually get to a tenmoku. This is the first point that we hit really, 1083, and then to 6. 1083, that's got 7% iron. So that's a bit more than I would expect with the 20% basalt. Yeah, and here, so then when we add bone ash, we get some kind of interesting hazy kind of green stuff happening. I don't know if you can see that. It is kind of chun-like, or at least the beginnings of it you can see here. So that's kind of interesting, but not spectacular. So I think there's more work to be done there. But you know, it could be good. And then in the soda, you know, not particularly attractive and quite drippy. So these really, they need to be stiffened up, so that's the next step. This is basically the same test as I did before, but the base I've added wollastonite instead of lime. So yeah, these ones. So we've got, the base is 60% Devil's Playground Granite, 20 wollastonite, 20 basalt, and then we add 0 to 10 iron, and then instead of bone ash like I did with the lime, I've added zinc just to see the difference. So this is the base. It's quite similar to the lime one, not really much to tell it apart, but we do see a bit of a difference. Whereas with the lime tests, we got to a tenmoku around 7%. This is not quite there. It's more kind of like, I don't know, kind of brown. None of these actually really get to the tenmoku stage. And they're also really quite drippy, like maybe even a bit more drippy. In soda though, there's some kind of interesting stuff, like I really like this yellow where it drips a lot. So I'm kind of thinking about trying a wash, like a thin wash of this. But yeah, too drippy, it needs to be more solid. And then when we add the zinc to these, in soda you get some sort of interesting things happening, but it's a bit drab, the palette. It's kind of like yellowish, red, it's green, you know, it's not particularly nice. Some interesting stuff happens where there's a lot of iron, but these are not as good as the zinc tests I did before. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it just needs to do more experiments, I think. Interestingly, the zinc solidifies the glaze, like these weren't as drippy, which is kind of interesting to know. And then here are the big test tiles with the zinc in reduction. And you know, actually at like 4 or 5%, that's the closest to a tenmoku. But you can see where it moves, it's still kind of like really translucent. And then up at this end where there's more iron, the zinc does more interesting things. But the crystals are pretty small. Yeah. Okay, here we are to look at the salt tests. So in these tests I added 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50% salt to my Devil's Playground Granite base. And as you can see, bad things happened. So this set was just in gas reduction, this was in soda, and then to these I added 4% iron. So, I mean, regardless, basically on all levels this was not a huge success. You can see even at 5-10%, any amount of salt in the glaze just made it sort of go really crazy. Like it, I assume that it kind of vaporized. I mean, yeah, some of them ran a lot. There are some very hilarious shapes that have happened here. And all very random. Like, hard really to, you know, say what would happen in these. I mean, some of them it's just like they completely disappeared. Like, you know, where did it go? So yeah, I would not recommend putting salt in your glazes. I had to try it, I was curious, but yeah, I can rule that one out. In this set of tests I add tin oxide to my Devil's Playground Granite. We got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50%. And then to these ones I add 4% iron. And yeah, so this is just in gas reduction, this is in gas soda, and then again reduction in the soda. So, you know, about the most interesting, I guess they're a bit more interesting without the iron. We got some interesting stuff happening here. 20%, there's this kind of like orangey speckle, but where it gets hit with soda it's just basically really grey. Yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting, but I don't think interesting enough. And as you add more tin, it's an opacifier and it tends to bubble quite a lot. In just gas it goes pretty orangey and it's kind of Shino-esque, starting to crawl here. Yeah, and then when we add iron to it, kind of what, you know, this is sort of pretty dull, flat, metallic. Some of the ones in soda have a bit more interest to them, but not a whole lot. So yeah, I'm not going to be adding tin. Basically, I think, you know, it could be worth trying like 20 and 25% in different soda glazes. There could be something there, but yeah, I'm not putting much hope on this. I'm just going to flick through my notebook now in case I lose it.